Trump has an ambitious set of goals when he takes office on January 20th. He'll need help from Republicans in Congress to accomplish many of them, if not all of them. For more on that, let's bring in one of those members of Congress from the Republican side, GOP Congresswoman Mia Love of Utah, who was skeptical of Trump during the campaign. I think that's fair to say. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I know that you were frustrated during the campaign that you didn't hear enough about Donald Trump's policies. Right. When you see the people that he is filling his cabinet with, or wants to, many of them need Senate confirmation, are you happy? Are you concerned? What do you think?
I'm pleasantly, I'm surprised and I'm happy. He's choosing people that don't necessarily agree with him, but have they have knowledge, they have experience in the areas. I mean, Ben Carson was a great choice. I was a little surprised with HUD, and then I was quite pleased with that choice. I mean, here's a person who grew up in poverty, who really grew up with an understanding of what it's like to live in areas where it's crime-ridden, it's just very difficult, and now he's a brain surgeon, and he gets to lead on these issues that are going to make poverty temporary for people, not just tolerable. So I'm excited about that choice.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Trump has yet to fill, he's filled Treasury, State, and Defense are usually considered the big three. Right. He's named General Mattis, and he's named the Treasury nominee. He has yet to fill the Secretary of State position. We know he's considering many people, including Rudy Giuliani, Mitt Romney, ExxonMobil Chairman Rex Tillerson, among many, many others. Look at that. It's just a big group of white men over 60. Do you have a favorite, or is there somebody there that you think would do a particularly good job? Are you a Mitt Romney fan?
Well, I'm always a Mitt Romney fan. I mean, Mitt has got a wealth of experience. He is, I know him personally. I know his heart. I know his experience. He's a great friend, and now from Utah, lives in Utah. His family lives in Utah. I know Mitt very well, and I think Mitt would do a great job. But all of those, the people that he has that are up there, I mean, I think that would be a decent choice for the United States. Obviously, I'm a fan of Mitt, so.
Interesting comment by President-elect Trump yesterday when he got the honor of Person of the Year by Time magazine, but it said President of the Divided States of America, and he insisted that he was not responsible for the divisions at all because he is not yet president. I feel like you might disagree with that maybe he is responsible for some of the divisions, obviously not all of them.
You know what? I think that we are more divided today than we were 7 years ago. And I think it's a lack of leadership. I think whatever.
So you put it on President Obama?
I put it on a lack of leadership in very many areas, including the President of the United States, the current President of the United States. We've had, I think it's important for us as leaders to make sure we're not victimizing people, that we're empowering them, that we are treating people equally, that we are not creating an environment where we're pinning up Americans against another. I think you'll remember during the RNC speech when Mitt Romney was running for president, I said that we're facing a situation where this president is dividing us based on social status, income levels, race, and gender. I mean, remember, there was a war against women. There were all of these other things that were coming in, and it was pitting Americans up against each other. And more than anything, we need to unify as Americans. My children are of mixed race. We see ourselves as first and foremost Americans and Utahns. And I think that there's a lot of healing that has to happen in this country. So.
Okay. Let me ask you, though, you've seen the tweets that the president-elect has sent, some of them directly aimed at critics, including this local labor leader in Indiana, Chuck Jones, who now says there have been some vague threats at him, although you heard him in that spot, nothing that he couldn't handle. I can't imagine what the kind of thick skin you need to be a labor leader in Indiana. But does that bother you at all? Does it trouble you at all? It's to a lot of people, to a lot of Mr. Trump's critics, it seems like anytime anybody pops up with a criticism of him, he uses his bully pulpit in a way that could actually potentially be dangerous even.
Well, you know, nobody's perfect, right? We know this. And probably one of the problem areas there is how you respond, because you still have to represent everyone.
Right.
Whether they supported you or not, you are the President of the United States. You don't represent one side versus another. You are supposed to make life better for all Americans. And so, you know, if you're going to make America great again, you have to make it great again for everyone. And so I think that that's, you know, he he reacts quite a bit. It's one of the things that people like about him, that he is not a pushover. When somebody pushes him, he pushes back. That can also be a downside. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to keep in check as a leader of the free world. I think it's important to make sure that you're not just reacting, that you're being thoughtful and you're being responsive.
Congresswoman Mia Love, I don't think I said, but congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you.
back. We're glad to have you back in Washington.